To Russia next, marking Victory Day today, an annual event to commemorate the Soviet defeat of Nazi Germany during the Second World War. The scenes inside Moscow's Red Square this morning, with columns of tanks and missiles rolling through and squadrons of fighter jets overhead. The Soviet Union then suffered huge casualties during the Second World War. About 27 million people lost their lives in the fighting then, and they commemorate all of those losses and the triumph, ultimately, in the Victory Day celebrations every year. Briar Stewart is following things for us today. She's in London with more on what is happening today and, of course, set against the backdrop of Russia's war against Ukraine. Briar, good morning.
Good morning, Heather. Yes, and I mean, that's really how Russia and President Vladimir Putin is trying to reframe Victory Day. The Soviet victory over Nazi Germany is revered in Russia. You mentioned this day is an annual event. It's a very patriotic occasion, but now what you start to hear is not so much looking back at history, but looking at the future. And President Putin did talk about the future today, and he said very directly that Russia doesn't want to start any kind of global conflict, but it will not be threatened. These are the same kind of messages that we typically hear from him whenever we speak, which we did also earlier this week when he was inaugurated for a fifth term as president. Now, in terms of the procession itself, it involves 61 pieces of military equipment, including intercontinental ballistic missiles, surface-to-air defense missile systems, and there are about 9,000 military service members. I mean, it looks like a big spectacle, but in fact, it's actually scaled down from how it has been in years past, and that is because of the number of Russian soldiers you have fighting in Ukraine at the moment. In terms of who else was at the procession, you had leaders from some former Soviet states, including Belarus, and afterwards, after Putin spoke, he was joined by the president of Belarus, Alexander Lukashenko, to talk about how there are plans in the works to launch some tactical nuclear exercises with nuclear weapons. And what Putin was trying to say is that this isn't out of the ordinary for Russia, that they do conduct these types of drills from time to time. But certainly when the specter of these exercises were raised the other day, Russia kind of did frame it as a response to some of the comments and actions that he says Russia's been hearing from the West.
Briar, again, coming back to the war in Ukraine, I'm wondering what's happening in Gaza is occupying so much of our time and thought right now. So we need a reminder. What is the picture on the battlefield in the fighting between Ukraine and Russia right now?
Well, I would say in a lot of ways, Russia is starting to gradually to take some small areas of Ukraine. I mean, we've seen them say that they've captured a couple of small villages, but I think people are waiting to see just what happens in the coming weeks, because it is expected that Russia will launch an offensive. Ukraine is obviously building up its defensive. It's focusing on recruiting more soldiers into the military, and really, I would say I spoke with an expert from from Manchester, from the Metropolitan University there, who said that even Russia may feel a little bit more confident now than say at this time last year. Listening to Putin today, it didn't seem like he was all that confident. I mean, this was not a speech that he gave where Russia appeared particularly victorious. Here's some of my conversation with Eleanor Beinman.
I think certainly he sees victory on his terms in Ukraine as being completely non-negotiable. The only option would be for there to be a full-scale defeat of Russia, but he's not going to give up. I mean, he's not interested in peace in any real sense of the word. It's become almost a kind of existential mission for him, I think.
And there's really no indications that there's any serious prospect of negotiations anytime soon. There is a conference, Peace Summit, that Switzerland will be hosting next month at the request of Ukraine. Dozens of countries are invited to take part, and right now Russia isn't among the invited participants.
Briar, thank you very much. Briar Stewart from London.